Aye then, breathe, ye dragons, breathe deep of the ancient air. For this is a tale old ere stars first learned their shine. Sing, if ye will, of the first world, that primal forge wrought from chaos and grace, where true beauty was painted upon the void's cold face. In those dawnless hours laboured Bahamut, the platinum, his silver claws shaping mountain and river, and Tiamat, the chromatic, fierce and vile, splashing her hues across the newborn heavens and hells. Together they woke, and together they toiled, partners in their singular dreams and potential deeds, twin hands of the same first breath of creation. Breathe, dragons, breathe and recall Sardior, ruby-born, the gem between platinum and chromatic flame. First among ye, he was, crafted by their concord and kinship. Side by side did he labour, moulding the worms that now fill the skies. Metallic, noble and bright. Chromatic, terrible and wild. 'Twas his breath that stirred life within thy kind, his voice that first taught thee to sing. But then came the outsiders. I name them so, gods born of war and desire, bearing mortals in swarming legions. They came to the first world seeking dominion, and foretold they sought. And they took what was in their hearts, their magic vast, and their numbers without end. And thus fell Bahamut, the noble. Sardior fled, heart hidden in the folds of creation. And Tiamat, fierce Tiamat, would not bend, would not flee. Even as death reached for her, she struck and clawed and screamed with defiance to the void. Yet the warbringers bound her, sealing her within Shadow's prison, a captive goddess, weeping. A slowing elevation of flame and venom in the dark. Then the gods of conquest sowed their seeds, elves in forest, dwarves in stone, orcs in the hollows, goblins in the waste, humans, ever reaching, ever innovative, filling all between. Thus was the first world sundered, its order scattered, its peace undone. And yet, breathe, dragons, for not all hope perished. Bahamut, weary and wise, forged peace with the conquering gods. From the heights celestial he was hailed, a paragon of justice, the platinum paladin. But even in his glory, grief lingered, for he yearned ever for his lost sister and sought her freedom through the ages. When at last the chains broke and Tiamat rose from her torment, her wrath was a storm unending, fire and frost, acid and lightning, venom and her vengeance unbound. She called her children to her side, the chromatic brood, the scourge of skies, and the world burned beneath her fury. So ended the first world, broken and scattered to the endless plains, its shards cast like seeds across reality. Bahamut and Tiamat watched the ruin of their labour, weeping in silence for what was lost. Sardior, too, was splintered, his mind scattered into gems and dreams. So breathe, ye dragons, for thy breath is remembrance of the first world, thy song the echo of worlds long perished. Ye are the inheritors of ruin, yet also of wonder. From the wreck of the first world's destruction, life endures. And the song goes, the greatest scholar of draconic mysteries on the Sword Coast looked out over the walls of Baldur's Gate toward the Sea of Swords and the setting sun. He thought to himself, at last, a moment's peace from the incessant voice that keeps yammering at the back of my skull. Master Velsart, if I may, I have another question about the Dracorage, spoke a high-pitched whine of a voice. Blast! There it is again, he sighed. With a barely controlled snarl, plastered over with a smile, the great sage turned around to greet his latest apprentice, Boltron Quillfeather, late of Twilight Hall. Ah yes, Master Boltron, what a surprise. You've been here, what, nearly a ride now? And yet, we still haven't begun to exhaust your store of questions, apparently. I believe I now understand why the wise leaders of those who harp thought to send you here to further your studies. Please, proceed." Almost without thinking, the Balduran lawmaster immediately tuned out the intricate and thoroughly irrelevant question that followed, perceiving little more than a rapid fireburst of high-pitched squealing. How many apprentices had he had over the years? What was it about this one that irritated him so? Baltran's mission was a noble one, to review and analyze all available lore regarding the Draco Rage, so that the Harpers might know how to proceed in the face of reports of spreading madness among the continent's great dragons. And yet, there was something so insistent, so demanding about Baltran's questions, that Velsiot could barely contain his frustration. Couldn't the bookish young human accept that Faerun's great worms simply succumb to madness from time to time, no matter how noble they might otherwise be? "Ah!" Velsiot screamed in frustration, rending the soft meat between his claws into a bloody pulp. "Get out of my head!" Chapter 1. History of Dragonkind. Although dragons are powerful, long-lived creatures, draconic history is little known, even among the longest-lived members of the race. Philosophers have speculated that the oral tradition of draconic historians and the innate self-centeredness of Dragonkind have combined to undermine the accumulation of a permanent draconic historical record. In fact, much of what is known of the history of Dragonkind has been recorded by the proud peoples, elves and dwarves, but their decline has led to the fragmentation of the historical record, and the records that remain display a perspective that reflects their creators' biases regarding Dragonkind. Great treasures lie beneath the majestic worms. Be thankful of Dragonkind, and leave these great dreamers awake to their slumber, else our world would quickly fall to their wrath. In the wake of the Days of Thunder, dragons rose to rule Faerun. Elven myth, recorded in the form of the Parwiccan cycle, speaks of the Tearfall, thought to refer to a rain of meteors that fell from the sky. Some scholars interpret the ancient texts as suggesting the meteors precipitated a dramatic climatic change, which in turn sparked the rapid evolution of proto-dragons, little more than large lizards, into the varied forms of dragonkind known today. Others claim that the meteors were in fact falling dragon eggs, from which the varied races of dragonkind were born into this world. The time of dragons, also known as the Dawn Ages, began circa minus 30,000 DR and lasted some 6 millennia. Individual dragons and dragon clans ruled large swathes of territory and battled with their rivals for control of the land, seas, and skies. The dragons of this age were devout followers of the draconic pantheon, and many wars of this period were fought over religious issues. Over time, however, religious fervor waned as philosophers of different faiths came to the conclusion that the draconic deities were not the guardians and protectors of dragonkind, because they had allowed dragons to fight such genocidal conflicts in their name. The one draconic holy war that continued unabated was the Dragonfall War, which pitted the followers of Bahamut against the spawn of Tiamat. The slumbering forms of Faerun's hordes occupy the dreams uninhabited, for when the waking hands all the wonders of wrath, I hear the words of Velsiot of Baldur's Gate, Year of Wild Magic, 1372 DR. During this period of devastating warfare among the dragons of Faerun, isolated pockets of formerly dragon-ruled territory fell under giant control. Over time, such giant-ruled kingdoms came to threaten the hegemony of dragonkind, leading to great battles between giant-ruled kingdoms such as Darkar, Grunfesting, Helheim, Nederheim, Ostoria, and Rangfiel, and dragon-ruled realms such as Sessins Milsariv, Darastrivatitcha, and Tharkrix Gontix. While Faerun's dragons and giants battled for dominance of Toril, the smaller humanoid races began to carve out their own kingdoms. In one such instance, the Parwiccan cycle speaks of the descendants of Tintager, now known as Moon and Gold Elves, who carved a realm from the northlands of Faerun by defeating a red great worm named Mahatna Torian, Master of the Mountains. The time of dragons drew to an end with the dawning of the Rage of Dragons. The high mages of the Fairfolk hit upon a plan that involved the creation of a high magic effect tied to appearances of the Kingkiller star, also known as the Kingslayer star among the Fairfolk. In the Heaven's Citadel, in the northernmost reaches of Faerun, they created the Draco Rage Mythal, encompassing all Faerun and periodically driving Faerun's worms to madness. The Kingkiller star appeared in the heavens just often enough for the Draco Rage Mythal to disrupt the dominance of the dragon race over the continent, but not so often as to prevent the rise of humanoid kingdoms in the Inter-Rage periods. Chapter 2. Under the Kingkiller star and the Dragonfall War. In the 25 millennia that followed, the collective power of Faerun's worms waxed and waned, but Dragonkind never reclaimed its absolute rule over Faerun. Every time individual worms or dragon clans sought to re-establish their dominance over large swathes of Faerun, either the lesser humanoid races united to bring them down, or, failing that, the Kingkiller star returned to drive them into madness, destroy what they had wrought, and turn them against their own offspring. Only once did an allied group of dragons come close to unraveling the Draco Rage Mythal. But the long-forgotten worms of that day were turned aside by the sacrifice of nearly the entire subrace of Avarials, who mustered a great crusade to fly north and defend the ancient citadel that housed the Draco Rage Mythal capstone. Although exceptions are recorded throughout history, in time, the majority of Faerun's dragons came to occupy the niche of top predator, which was different than their original positions of king or queen. Notable exceptions include Anaglathos, who ruled over Termish for 6 years, Kisonre Athaisar, who ruled over Westgate until the Year of Bold Poachers, minus 349 DR, Thchazar, who ruled over Chesenta for nearly a century, and Ilverar Salisar, the Rose Dragon, who ruled over Kalamport for a century. The last rage of dragons unleashed by the Kingkiller star unfolded in the year of the Draco Rage, 1018 DR. The last flight of dragons occurred over the Dalelands and the Moonsea in the year of the Worm, 1376 DR. Although the time of dragons is long forgotten, even among the most ancient of great worms, the ancient conflict between Tiamat and Bahamut has continued, increasing and decreasing in intensity over time, gradually subsuming other races and cultures as well. The last great era of conflict between the Platinum Dragon and the Chromatic Dragon raged from minus 2087 DR to minus 1071 DR. During the first millennium of the Untheric Empire, Tiamat's cult was brought to Faerun, at least among humans, by the Mulan. The clergy of Enlil preached that Tiamat was the nemesis of the gods, and she was blamed by the god kings for every setback Unther experienced as it rose to greatness and then decayed over the centuries. The Queen of Dragons battled an Untheric alias of Bahamut, known as Marduk the Justice Bringer, time and again, but neither worm could prevail. In minus 1071 DR, the Untheric pantheon marched to war against the deities of the Orc pantheon in a cataclysmic conflict that saw the death of many gods. During the final battle of the gods, Tiamat launched a surprise attack against Gilgim while he battled Ilnaval. The ever-vigilant Marduk intervened, killing Tiamat before she could land a death blow against Gilgim, but at the cost of his own life. In the wake of the Battle of the Gods, the Platinum Dragon was reduced in power, and likewise the Chromatic Dragon was reduced due to the carnage. Marduk's church vanished entirely, his name remembered only as one of the Old Ones of Unther, but Tiamat's cult survived after a fashion. As Gilgim grew increasingly tyrannical, the people of Unther never forgot the nemesis of the gods, and they increasingly turned to her in secret for succor. In the year of Fell Pearls, 887 DR, a former chosen of Mystra named Samastar became convinced that dead dragons would one day rule Toril, a path he named the Scaly Way. Samastar created his first Dracolich in the year of Queen's Tears, 902 DR, and the ranks of the cult of the dragon soon swelled. In the years that followed, Samasta suffered a series of setbacks, but the cult of the dragon continued to follow his teachings. After his last defeat in the year of the Black Snake, 1285 DR, the Lich Samasta returned to unlife once again thanks to the magic of his phylactery. Once he did, however, Samasta saw little point in resuming command of the followers of the Scaly Way immediately, for he had tried that path before. The founder of the cult of the dragon was frustrated by the inability of the secret society, strong in magic but numerically weak, to stand against its foes, and by the reluctance of many evil dragons to embrace his vision of a future when they, as undead Dracoliches, would rule supreme. Plainly, he needed a new strategy, and he sought inspiration in ancient texts and places of power. Chapter 3: Return of the Dragon Queen and the Rise of the Dragon King. In the year of the Blood Bird, 1346 DR, after centuries of silence from the Dragon Queen, the few remaining followers of the nemesis of the gods successfully summoned an aspect of Tiamat known as the Dark Lady to Unther, an event that had been heralded centuries before by Ochir Nal, prophet of Tiamat. Over the next dozen years, the Dark Lady secretly fomented rebellion throughout Unther, seeking to overthrow the hated Gilgim, and the ranks of her followers swelled once again, elevating her to the rank of demigod. Unknown to her followers in Unther, the Dragon Queen had her own reasons for finally answering their prayers. While the Church of Tiamat grew in opposition to the despotic rule of Gilgim, the Dragon Queen turned her baleful gaze to Samasta's studies, in which she saw suggestions of mad genius. Through subtle hints and divinely inspired bursts of intuition, Tiamat helped Samasta rediscover the secrets of the Draco Rage mythal without revealing to him that his discoveries were guided by the claws of a dark god. In time, roaming the Moonsea region and the Cold Lands in disguise, Samasta discovered the existence of the Draco Rage mythal and its secrets. As Tiamat had hoped, he set about harnessing the power of the Draco Rage for his own ends. In the Year of Shadows, 1358 DR, the Avatar Crisis forced the gods of Toril to walk among their followers in mortal form, upsetting many divine machinations, including those of the Dragon Queen. During the time of troubles, Gilgim destroyed Tiamat, seemingly ending her threat to his eternal rule. In truth, however, Tiamat's essence was splintered among three powerful dragons in the region. The largest of the three, Chazar, consumed the other two, therefore meeting the conditions the Dragon Queen had laid down in advance. Chazar was thereby transformed into Tiamat anew. The fall of the gods also returned Bahamut to the land in avatar form, for the first time since the death of Marduk. During his sojourn on Faerun, the Platinum Dragon caught wind of Tiamat's brewing plots, which presaged a resumption of the Dragonfall War. In the Year of the Serpent, 1359 DR, Gareth Dragonsbane, future king of Damara, and his adventuring companions returned from an expedition to the Abyss, having stolen the wand of Orcus. They also had shattered it in the blood of an avatar of Tiamat, and returned to Damara with the blessing of Bahamut. Gareth brought with him the tree gem, which once planted, represented Bahamut's covenant to protect Damara against the influence of demons as long as the kingdom of Damara allied itself with the forces of good. In so doing, Gareth brought to Damara a measure of peace and freedom from demonic meddling that the rest of the demon lands has never experienced. As Bahamut had hoped, the planting of the tree gem sparked renewed interest in his teachings among the non-dragon races. In the years that followed, good-aligned mortals across Faerun heard the call of Bahamut, and many pledged themselves to the service of the Platinum Dragon. The elite became Platinum Knights. Some of those who were called by Bahamut chose to undergo the rite of rebirth, transforming themselves into a long-forgotten race known as the Dragonborn. As the ranks of his followers swelled, Bahamut rose in power, assuming the rank of lesser deity once again, while Tiamat did the same. The planting of Bahamut's tree gem also drew the attention of the Dragon Queen. In response, Tiamat dispatched an avatar to Castle Perilous in the cold wastelands of Vasa. scores of chromatic dragons heeded her call and descended on the ruined fortress. With their participation, the Dragon Queen initiated a massive breeding program, creating all manner of spawn of Tiamat, horrifying monstrosities that had not been seen in Toril since the Battle of the Gods. And the spawn of Tiamat then spread far and wide. Chapter 4. Year of Rogue Dragons. In the year of Rogue Dragons, 1373 DR, Samaster finally completed his transformation of the Draco Rage Mythol, tying his phylactery to the chamber that served as the capstone of the ancient Draco Rage Mythol, so that the Mythol's effects were no longer constrained by the appearance of the Kingkiller star in the heavens, but linked instead to his own life force. Only Dracoliches would remain unaffected by Samaster's endless, ever-intensifying Draco Rage, and worms of every species would have to ally themselves with the cult and accept transformation into the form of a sacred one, or suffer permanent madness. The Lich then set about reasserting his control over individual Cult of the Dragon cells across Faerun. From the Isle of Tan in the Pirate Isles to Dragonback Mountain, northernmost peak of the Riders, to the Sky Mountains, cult members transformed their secret strongholds into laboratories in which dozens, if not hundreds of dragons could be transformed into Dracoliches in a short period of time. As the rage of dragons spread and worsened, chromatic dragons across Faerun either succumbed to its effects and turned on whoever crossed their path, or desperately embraced the dragon cult as an alternative. Rampaging worms wreaked great destruction across Faerun, from Azram to Kalimport, and from Asavir's Channel to the Tanith Mountains. But Samaster's guiding hand focused their destruction on Damara, Impiltur, Narfell, Sossal, Vasa, and the Coldlands north of the Moonsea. Communities such as Bloodstone Pass, the Monastery of the Yellow Rose, Uluvin, and Ilrafon were destroyed or nearly so by dragons who succumbed to madness, and other groups, such as the Thousand Fists or the Tribe of the Nether Mountains and the navies of Simbar and Suranar, were decimated by the dragon's wrath. Lareth, sovereign of the Gold Dragons, called for a great council in the Galena Mountains, where he unveiled his plan for all the metallic dragons to enter a magical slumber until the Draco Rage subsided, as his kind had done time and again. While many elder metallic dragons had the magical ability to flee to another plane due to long-standing draconic traditions regarding territorial claims, they did not do so, fearing the effect of abandoning territory on the material plane to their hated chromatic cousins. Although many worms agreed with the King of Justice, a few rebels rejected this approach, maintaining, thanks to subtle hints from the Lord of the North Wind, that this episode of Draco Rage was like no other and would last forever. Displaying the first tinges of madness, Lareth threatened to use his minions to coerce or destroy any dragon who resisted. In time, the great gold worm Tamarand, second only to Lareth, was forced to destroy the King of Justice, but he refused the mantle of royalty. Only the gem dragons largely escaped the effects of the Draco Rage, for they had the power and the willingness to flee to the inner planes for however long it lasted. However, a few waited too long and succumbed to the effects of the Draco Rage as well. As Samaster's plot unfolded with astonishing swiftness, a group of heroes led by Dawn Greybrook and Karasendriath worked to unravel the effects of Samaster's art. In locales such as the Grey Forest, the Monastery of the Yellow Rose, Northkeep and Thar, the heroes retraced Samaster's path, seeking the lore first found by the Lich that allowed him to manipulate the Draco Rage Mythol. Eventually, the allies discovered how to counter the Draco Rage Mythol and turned their efforts toward finding the Draco Rage Mythol's capstone. Their search led them to a lost elf city in the Novelarond Mountains in the heart of the Great Glacier, and from there through a portal to the ancient citadel in the northernmost reaches of Faerun, in which the Mythol had been raised millennia ago. After a great battle with Samaster and his summoned planar dragon allies, the heroes prevailed, destroying the Lich, his phylactery, and the Draco Rage mythal once and for all, thereby forever ending the magical madness that had long afflicted the dragons of Faerun. In the wake of Samasta's Rage of Dragons, Faerun's worms returned to their lairs, greatly reduced in number. Many had died unleashing orgies of destruction on the lesser races of Faerun. Others had embraced dracolichdom, and some now found themselves magically beholden to the dragon cult's wearers of purple. Few among the Dragonkind races realized that Tiamat had set in motion the events that led to the destruction of the Draco Rage mythal. But word quickly spread that Samasta and the cult were behind the most recent rage, thanks to skilled rumor-mongering by both the Harpers and the Church of Tiamat. Even fewer realized the end of the Draco Rage marked the turning of the Great Cycle, the long-foretold resumption of religious fervor among Dragonkind. In the year of lightning storms, 1374 DR, Faerun was beset by great lightning strikes the length and breadth of the continent. At least some of those lightning strikes marked the impact points of an unusual year-long rain of meteors. In a series of visions, Bahamut and Tiamat instructed their respective followers to seek out such sites, for each contained some form of draconic egg within. In the months that followed, the Church of Tiamat recovered more than half of the eggs of the latest Tearfall and brought them back to the Altar of Scales in Unthalas in preparation for the looming war. The rest were lost, hatched on their own, or recovered by followers of Bahamut. And dearest listener, we remember, we recall, and hearken back to the first world through the elegy. So ended the first world, broken and scattered to the endless plains, its shards cast like seeds across reality. Bahamut and Tiamat watched the ruin of their labor, weeping in silence for what was lost. Sardior, too, was splintered, his mind scattered into gems and dreams. So breathe, ye dragons, for thy breath is remembrance of the first world, thy song the echo of worlds long perished. Ye are the inheritors of ruin, yet also of wonder. From the wreck of the first world's destruction, life endures, and the song goes.